3.5 million years ago, the world looked very different from the one we know today. Vast grasslands stretched across East Africa, broken by scattered woodlands and rivers that teemed with life. It was here, in this shifting and dangerous landscape, that our ancestors took some of their earliest steps toward becoming human. These were the days of Australopithecus afarensis, one of the first species in our lineage to walk upright on two legs with confidence. Fossil evidence tells us that these hominins lived in small groups, gathered fruits and roots, and sometimes scavenged meat from carcasses. They were not yet hunters in the modern sense, but they were beginning to explore new ways of surviving in a challenging world. Yet survival was never easy. The savanna was filled with enormous and often terrifying creatures. Among the most imposing was a prehistoric relative of today's elephants, the mighty Dinotherium. Unlike the elephants we know, these giants were larger, standing up to 4 meters tall at the shoulder, with downward curving tusks that hung from their lower jaws. A single adult could weigh more than 10 tons. To a fragile hominin barely over 1 meter tall, such a creature was not only awe-inspiring, but also a constant reminder of the dangers of living in this ancient world. Imagine a small band of Australopithecus moving cautiously through the tall grass, searching for tubers or edible fruits. Their eyes are sharp, scanning not just for food, but for movement. The flick of a predator's tail, or the distant rumble of massive footsteps. Then, they hear it. A low vibration through the ground, followed by a trumpeting call that echoes across the plains. Ahead, breaking through the trees, comes a herd of Dinotherium. The ground shakes beneath their enormous weight. Mothers guide their young closely, while dominant males patrol the edges of the herd. The hominins freeze. They know they cannot challenge these giants, nor can they afford to attract their attention. Silence and distance are their best defenses. From the safety of a ridge, they watch the spectacle unfold. For the Australopithecus, this was both a threat and an opportunity. Where there are giant herbivores, there is also life. Herds of prehistoric elephants trampled the grass, creating open paths that smaller creatures, and eventually humans, could use. Their foraging disturbed the soil, exposing roots and plants that could be gathered. And when one of these giants died, whether from age, illness, or attack by predators, its carcass became a rare and valuable source of meat and marrow. But approaching such opportunities came with extreme risks. Carnivores like saber-toothed cats, hyenas, and giant crocodiles always lingered nearby, waiting to claim their share. For our ancestors, caution was everything. They may have learned to approach cautiously, taking what scraps they could before fleeing at the first sign of danger. The encounter with these elephants also shaped how our ancestors thought. To live alongside giants required not only physical adaptation, but also mental awareness. They had to recognize patterns, the sounds that signaled danger, the tracks that told where the herds had passed, and the shifting winds that carried scents of predators. This growing awareness, this ability to read the world, was part of the slow evolution that would one day define humanity. Scientists believe that living in such a complex environment encouraged cooperation. A lone hominin had little chance of survival, but a group could watch from many directions, warn of threats, and care for each other. The presence of colossal animals like Dinotherium may have reinforced the importance of staying together. Safety was found not in strength, but in unity. The landscape itself was also transforming. Around this time, East Africa's climate was changing, gradually becoming drier. Forests retreated and grasslands expanded. This shift forced many species to adapt or perish. For Australopithecus, it meant spending more time in the open savanna, where encounters with massive herbivores were more frequent. Walking on 2 legs, bipedalism, offered advantages here. It allowed them to spot herds and predators from a distance, to move more efficiently across long stretches of land, and to carry food or tools back to their group. Standing upright, our ancestors could gaze across the plains and witness the grandeur and the dangers of the ancient world. The sight of a Dinotherium herd moving slowly across the horizon would have been both humbling and unforgettable. Today, we cannot fully grasp the awe our ancestors must have felt. For us, elephants are magnificent creatures, but they are familiar. For early humans, these prehistoric elephants were living titans. Their presence shaped the rhythms of daily life. They determined where hominins could safely travel, when they could gather food, and how they might scavenge. These encounters were not moments of conquest. They were lessons in survival. The hominins did not try to dominate the giants. They simply learned to live alongside them, to adapt, and to take advantage of the opportunities that arose. This careful balance between caution and curiosity, between risk and reward, was a crucial part of the evolutionary journey. 3.5 million years later, We tell their story not because Australopithecus afarensis conquered their world, but because they endured it. They survived alongside predators and giants, through changing climates and shifting landscapes. They learned little by little to read their environment, to cooperate and to adapt. And from those humble beginnings, from those fragile figures watching giant elephants on the plains of Africa, the long story of humanity continued to unfold.